Today I'd like to read from John chapter 14 of verse 6, a passage of scripture that all of us are very, very familiar with. Jesus said to them, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. We find these words of Jesus as he spoke to his disciples in the upper room before they went to the garden. These are transforming words. Here Jesus is declaring that he alone is the way, the truth, the life, in response to Thomas's question. Jesus is the way to the Father primarily because his death made access to the Father's presence possible for sinful human beings. He is also the way to God because he is the truth. He brought the truth of God into the world. We see that in John 1:14 and verse 17, and chapter 8, verse 32 and 40, 45 through 46, chapter 14, verse 6, and 18, verse 37, proclaiming it and embodying that very truth. Therefore, when people receive Jesus, they come to the one in whom the truth about the Father is found. He is also the way to the Father, because he is the life. This fourth gospel speaks of Jesus as the life. In John chapter 1, verse 14, we also, as the Father has life in himself, so he has granted the Son to have life in himself. And then in John chapter 5, verse 26, for as the Father has life in himself, so he also has granted the Son to have life in himself. He is also called the bread of life in John chapter 6, verse 33. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. And then in verse 35 of chapter 6, and Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. John chapter 6, verse 48. I am the bread of life. And then in verse 51, I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever, and the bread that I will give him is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. All these texts reflect the fact that the life of God is found in Jesus. Therefore, when people come to Jesus, they come to the one in whom the life of the Father is found. And as a result, Jesus is the way to the Father, the only way. In this text, Jesus not only said that he was the way, the truth, and the life, he also added, no one comes to the Father except through me. No one else can bring people to God, for no one else has seen God or made him known. We see that also displayed in chapter 1, verse 8, and chapter 3, verse 13. Jesus speaks of himself as the bread of life. And in John 11:25, he says, he is the resurrection and the life. Let me read it to you. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he may die, he shall live. So as I return to John chapter 15, Jesus absolutely declares himself to be the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me, he says. There are no other alternatives. No one else can bring people to God, for no one else has seen God or made him known. No one else speaks and embodies the truth about God as he does. No one else shares the very life of God, and no one else has dealt with the problem of human sin so as to bring people back to a holy God. As we celebrate Passion Week, let us worship him as the fully sufficient one and remember that no one can claim to know God while rejecting Jesus as his Son. Again, John chapter 14, verse 6. Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, the life. No man comes to the Father except through me.